time for a real breakthrough.
Your outreach to Hamas, or their willingness to meet with Hamas, followed on your gaining intimate knowledge of the condition of the people of Gaza. Presumably you wouldn't have even, met with the people they elected if you hadn't formed strong impressions of what the people are experiencing. What are the people experiencing
Well,
in
I
Gaza?
think that's exactly right, and that's why in the trips we did in January and then again in March, we didn't meet with the government. We wanted to meet with ordinary people and experience what they had gone through during the 22-day invasion as well as the ongoing siege. And it's because of our just feeling heartbroken at what their experience is that we then felt okay about talking to government people. I think I'm shocked every time I go into Gaza to think that in this day and age, a country like Israel that puts itself forward as a democracy, that continues to receive $3 billion a year in U.S. aid that goes to the military, would be able to get away with such clear violations of international law. And that there is not a greater international outcry is what shocks me. When you see so many homes of civilians razed, when you understand that so many children have been killed, that so many schools have been destroyed, that people's places of worship have been destroyed, that the UN had been under such attack. How can a country in this day and age get away with it? And a country that still continues to hold its head up as if it's the only democracy in the Middle East. It's pretty astounding, and the double standard in so many ways is astounding. Whether it's around nuclear weapons, when do we hear about Israel's nuclear weapons and some strong international campaign to force them to get rid of their nuclear weapons, or respecting international law, when the U.S. puts conditions out to talk to Hamas that they should recognize Israel and renounce violence and abide by previous agreements. Israel doesn't recognize Palestine, renounce violence, or abide by previous agreements. So I think just the plea to not act in this one-sided way, and it's starting to happen. So yes, I think our commitment comes from seeing people suffering and wanting to do something about it.
Can you make it a little bit, is there one story that if you had to bring forward to Americans of an individual, is there anyone who springs to mind of something you saw, something you heard this trip or even last one, of someone whose situation would convey to Americans that, I mean, obviously we met many people but is there one individual who you can think of right offhand and what his experience has been?
Yeah, it was not so much one individual, but on the last trip we went to one of the camps where people were living in tents. And we asked for some of the women in those tents to come together and talk to us. And as we went around by one, each one started telling the story of someone in their family, their husband, their child, being killed and losing everything, losing their homes, losing their livelihoods. And one by one, each woman telling the story, break down and crying and saying, why? What did I do? Why do I deserve this? And then looking to us and pleading and saying, don't let this happen. Do something about it. And feeling that commitment that people who are totally innocent, who are just happened to be living in Gaza, would find themselves on the receiving end of the bomb. And at one point, one of the women had taken out some of the fragments of the shell that had hit her home and pulled them out. And she said to us, because it had still a little piece on it, made in the USA. And it's just heartbreaking to think that these are our tax dollars, this is our government, and that we're pretty directly responsible for the death of these people.
What about it? I was recently on a show, PBS something. Someone was interviewing me and said, "Aren't you disloyal as a Jew?" What's your answer to that? How does your Jewish identity figure in your activism on this question?
I think if we go on this way, there's going to be a third world war in the Middle East, and Jews are really going to be wiped out, and I don't want that to happen. I want to see Jews living in peace with their Arab neighbors, and we're so similar. It's amazing how similar we are. So I think what we're doing is actually for the good of Israel. That Israel is hated around the world, hated in the region, and it reflects badly not only on Jews in Israel, but Jews around the world. So if we don't stand up and demand justice and peace for Israelis and Palestinians, we're hurting Israel, and we're hurting the cause of Jewish people around the world.
Last night we talked to this guy who said, talked about how progressive Palestinians, highly educated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And women drive here. I didn't see one woman driving. Did you see a woman driving?
I didn't. I was looking around a lot for that. Didn't see it.
And this is something personally that I've been in several Arab societies, Muslim societies. I'm not an expert. I respond to things in a very emotional way, as I respond to the destruction in a very emotional way, and to personal stories. I respond to the roles that I see women having in this society. I sense a limitation in terms of the roles. Let's leave the clothes out of this. You wear funny clothes. I mean, they're cute. But the roles, I don't sense that, I don't know. I don't sense a lot of, I sense certain limitations. What's your response to that?
I think around the world, women are in different stages of struggles for their rights and different stages of having won struggles for their rights. And that our role is really to support women in their struggles. And I met some really powerful, amazing, wonderful role models among women in Gaza that surprised me. Women who were young women in charge of major organizations that had older men that were under them, that they were telling, oh, could you get this? Could you come here? It was pretty cool to see. And so I think in terms of the workplace, we saw a lot of empowered women.
Really? Okay.
I don't know enough about the society on other levels. I think at the university, the women were just wonderful, and they told us that they outnumber the men 60 to 65% women. And they also said that women get the best grades and that women get the best jobs after they get out of university because they're smarter. And they told us that with great sense of pride. So I think women in Palestinian women have made a lot of gains for women in the Middle East in general. And if you probably compared Palestinian women to women in other places, like Saudi Arabia, you'd see that they've made great advances.
Medea, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
You too.